I just received a project in Pittsburgh and I'm going to build a 10-foot tall piece. I want to take you along on the ins and outs in creating a large-scale sculpture. I've actually made this sculpture as a model already, but I sold that. So now I took a ton of photos, and my husband and I were talking about putting it in the computer to photograph it from every angle and then have it spread out in the computer and have a cutting file and be able to alter the size and scale and get it just so that would be cut, and then I could fabricate it. But that looks like it isn't going to work because the photos that we took of the piece are too shiny. I've decided to go back to the drawing board and I am recreating the piece out of paper to figure out how I can make the piece. So here's the thing with large-scale projects. I haven't actually signed the contract, and I rarely get started on a piece until I receive that first check, and it's typically 50% down so that I don't lose any money out of my own pocket if the deal falls through. So I'm sort of thinking of starting the project early because of a deadline. Not a huge deadline, it's just art. It's, usually the artwork, as I find out, is the icing on the cake. Of course, people want it the minute they put some money down, but it does take time to make. I have another project in Roanoke, Virginia that if I can get on the ball and get this piece made and delivered, I can do one drive from Pittsburgh to Virginia, then back up to Boston, and I'll be saving money in the long run and a lot of drive time. So that gets me started on where I'm starting with this sculpture. Now I need to figure out how much money I'm going to put into the project before the contract is actually going through. So if I build this piece and the deal falls through, how much money am I going to be out? Is it worth it to get a jump start on it early to meet this deadline? Typically I take the piece and I measure the model, and I'll take measurements from that. I'm taking pieces of paper and I'm cutting them the general shape that I need. This is really just to figure out my material costs. Once I get more into the project, I will probably sculpt this out of steel to make sure the measurements are perfect. But right now, I just want to call the stainless steel company and see how much this is going to cost. So as I'm building this out of paper, I'm building it 1 inch equals a foot, which I commonly prefer to do. I'm just writing down how I am going to go about building this. In the past, I've done this sort of hollow box construction for a piece called Wave Traveler in Providence, Rhode Island. So I typically work in 16 gauge sheet metal, but for a public artwork that's a little thin, too thin. I need something thicker so that it can withstand the outdoor elements as well as people and moving it. A lot of strain from moving the sculpture over and over again gets put on those welds because it's moved and kicked and bumped. I think I'm going to start with 1/4 inch side rails connected with an interior skeleton of either angle iron or square tube. That will probably be a detail that I consider with the cost. Sitting here measuring my paper and then translating it to what we have available for metal material. Metal material typically comes in a 4x8 sheet or 5x10 sheet. Right now I'm looking at getting 5x10 sheets. I'll bring them here and I'll cut them with a laser cutter and then get started. If you like following public art and sculpture as it's being built, please click on the link below, subscribe, and thanks for joining me on this building journey.